Now, in a written statement, the U.S. Secretary of State said it is now a matter for the Afghan authorities to decide on a way ahead that brings this electoral process to a conclusion in line with the Afghan constitution. We will support the next president and the people of Afghanistan who seek and deserve a better future. We'll talk all about this. Al Jazeera's correspondent James Bays joins us now live from the Afghan capital, Kabul. And James, talk to us a little bit about whether you really think this poll is likely to take place.
Well, at the moment, everyone says that the poll is going to take place on November the 7th. I spoke a few hours ago to the chairman of the Independent Election Commission, Abdullah Abdullah, and he said under the law he could see no alternative but to have this election with just one candidate, even though that means a vast organisational headache because it's winter in some parts of Afghanistan, a security headache because you've got to protect these polling stations, even though people will be turning out just to vote for one candidate. There are risks to the security forces who would be guarding these polling stations, both the Afghan security forces and the international security forces, and clearly there are also risks to those voters that do turn out to endorse Hamid Karzai, because the Taliban has urged people to boycott the election. So that right now is the official position, but I can tell you behind the scenes the international community is of the view that this should not take place, that it would be an unnecessary risk to all involved to have an election when we already know the outcome. We already know that Hamid Karzai is the only candidate who's on the ballot paper who people can actually vote for. As I understand it, the ballot paper is already printed with two names on them, but if you were to vote for Dr. Abdullah on November the 7th, if this was to go ahead, then your vote wouldn't count.
Now, James, many in Washington are speculating behind the scenes as well. Dr. Abdullah's strategy in all of this was to get international pressure on Karzai to meet his demands. So if this was the strategy, in fact, of Dr. Abdullah, is this now a backfire strategy, given the fact that Washington is saying that they will work with whomever is to be the leader of the government? In fact, that this doesn't affect the legitimacy of the election, that Dr. Abdullah has withdrawn.
Well, there are suspicions here among many that I've spoken to that, yes, Dr. Abdullah was trying to seek a deal on an election on a basis that he believed he should take part on. That's what he said publicly, but also behind the scenes that Dr. Abdullah was trying to do a deal with Hamid Karzai. We know that at various points they've had negotiations, not talking themselves, but their representatives have been talking about possible deals. We know, for example, that Dr. Abdullah wanted to have control of the powerful Ministry of Interior. Those talks didn't get anywhere, and it may be that Dr. Abdullah felt that the way this election was set up, he wouldn't be able to win it, and he wouldn't be able to do the deal that he wanted with Hamid Karzai, and that he felt that his best position was to boycott the election, because I think some here feel that could weaken the president. The president is going to become president again with an election that many Afghans, when you speak to people in the streets, believe is now a farcical proposition with just one candidate available for them to vote for.
And of course, James, many in Washington are waiting with some anticipation with regard to President Barack Obama's decision on whether to send more troops into Afghanistan. From a security point of view, I mean, how does this affect that decision on whether to send more troops, given the fact that many in Afghanistan, as well as outside of Afghanistan, view this now as somewhat of a tainted process?
Well, I think the one thing the military will probably be pleased about, even though this process has had so many people criticising it, is that it seems to be coming to an end. Whether we actually have a poll taking place on November the 7th or not, it's pretty obvious that if there is a poll on November the 7th, Hamid Karzai will be the victor because he is the only candidate. And I think that will please many in the military, that the election process is finally over, because this country has effectively been on hold for months since the August the 20th election. Even before that, during the campaign period, it's been very hard to to get anything done, a sense of paralysis in the capital here, Kabul. Hamid Karzai has been the president, but during this time of election flux, it's been very difficult for him to take any big decisions. This whole military decision has been on hold, partly because President Obama still hasn't decided whether he's going to send more troops or not, but partly because they couldn't announce a decision like this during this contentious election period. But we still have a lot of challenges ahead here in Afghanistan in the coming months. There's going to be a whole controversial process of Hamid Karzai choosing his new cabinet. Some Western diplomats have told me they fear that he could be paying back some of those that have supported him in the election, and there may be some deals for some of what have been described to me as unsavory characters. And then as we approach the winter, what exactly are they going to do about the military situation? Not just more troops, but is there going to be a change in strategy? We've already quietly seen that going on in recent weeks in the east of Afghanistan. The troops, mainly American troops in that area, who've been in remote command outposts, well, some of those outposts are now closing, part of a new strategy to concentrate more on the urban areas.
All right, James Bays reporting live, giving us the very latest there from Kabul. Thank you.